This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report, a show made by fans, for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and with me is Andrew's going to give us this week's topics.
Well, we're going to talk Cade Cunningham's Summer League debut, and is it possible that I'm already annoyed with Pistons fans as the season has started? And we're also going to give a little bit of a primer for Lions preseason. Game 1 is on Friday. Let's talk about it. It's Fan Report.
All right, Andrew, I want to kind of kick things off quickly here with the Summer League, because I'm curious to hear as to why you are already annoyed with Pistons fans. Just kind of get your take, and I'll give my 2 cents, and we'll go from there. So let's hear it. Why are you annoyed with Detroit sports fans?
I am. Let's put it this way. I am bracing for impact this season. With the Pistons having the number 1 pick, obviously every Pistons fan's expectations are through the roof. But I also feel like a lot of Pistons fans' expectations of what they're going to get out of Cade Cunningham aren't exactly realistic. And you saw it on Sunday when you saw both Jalen Green play and then Cade Cunningham follow that up in back-to-back games. And they saw the flashiness, the scoring ability, athletic ability of Jalen Green, followed by the kind of polar opposite game of Cade Cunningham.
Let me stop you there and ask you, what do you think, I want to hear your gauge on what you think Pistons fans' expectations are for Cade Cunningham and the Pistons this season, then, just so that kind of we can get a base here to kind of go off of.
Oh, it's very simple. I think they were expecting more flash. And because when you get the number 1 pick, you're expecting this super flashy player, this guy that's going to go out, get you 25 points a night, and just this guy that's going to take over. Not saying that Cade Cunningham can't take over, but what I'm starting to notice now is Pistons fans, especially those who weren't as familiar with Cunningham and Green going into the draft and going into Summer League, are now looking and just taking. It seems like they're taking things at face value, and it's really irking me. And I can already see it now throughout the season. Every single game of Cade is going to be overanalyzed. Every single move he makes to be overanalyzed and questioning, did we make the correct call at number 1 pick? Because I feel like Pistons fans had a lot of angst. You saw with Darko. You saw with what happened with Andre Drummond. Like we've missed on so many picks, and I feel like Pistons fans have a lot of angst, and they're just kind of bracing for impact. And I don't know if I'm ready to quell everyone's concerns. Because
well, here's where I'm gonna not so much side with Pistons fans, but I'm going to kind of say, okay, I hear you. And you kind of touched on it with the fact that how many picks, including extremely high picks, the Pistons have screwed up in our short lifetimes here as Pistons fans, with Darko, with Drummond, with Henry Ellenson, with Stanley Johnson, with, insert player here. They've screwed them all up, every last one of them. So I get why there's some angst there. I do think it's premature in that regard. However, I will say this. We did draft Cade Cunningham to be our primary scorer. So if he is not scoring 25 points a game on average year over year, that's a mistake. Like,
or you expect that in his rookie year?
Anthony Edwards did it.
Did he average 25?
Pretty damn close if he didn't.
Didn't we come out and say like our point expectation for Cade Cunningham was like 17 points per game?
Yes, we did. Don't get me wrong. I do not expect Stanley John 19.3 is what he averaged. I do not expect Cade Cunningham to average 25 points a game in his rookie year. I do expect him between somewhere around 17 to 20. I will say that.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there.
And I expect efficient shooting numbers and
I'll agree with you there.
Good facilitation, so around 5, 6, 7 assists a game, and probably 3, 4, 5 rebounds.
And in his offense, he would have easily hit 6, but Tyler Cook apparently wanted to throw the game on Sunday because the amount of dimes he gave Tyler Cook that Cook dropped.
Tyler Cook had a bit of a rough day.
Or
day at the office.
Missed open shots. Like it was. I remember I was kind of upset. At the office. I was kind of upset that we cut him. Now I get it.
He's got hands of stone. It is what it is. But like I'm not going to really put. Well, okay, you've heard me say this time after time after time. I will never put any weight in Summer League. But for the Pistons fans that wanted a flashy player out of Cade Cunningham, those people clearly didn't watch him in college because he never has been a flashy player. He's not the athletic super scorer, ball, me first. I'm going to drive the lane every single play, be explosive player. That's Jalen Green to a T. Jalen Green is the explosive, shot creating for himself, ISO ball type player. That is Jalen Green's game. That is not Cade Cunningham's game. Now, if you want to tell me that, then I wish we would have drafted the guy that is the big time scorer, me first guy to be, that's what we needed, well, then that's your prerogative, and you can believe that. I disagree with it, but that's your prerogative.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm getting at here, too, is like, I'm starting to feel like fans in this town have been we've been so deprived of top tier talent, I guess, since Calvin left, that like we are it almost feels like we're starting to value flash over substance. And not saying that Jalen doesn't have substance. I think he's going to be probably the second best. He's my second favorite prospect in this draft outside of Cade Cunningham. But what I saw to Cade Cunningham in his first game of Summer League was someone who was super active and effective on the defensive end, someone who was making the right plays in the offensive end. Really, my only complaint with him was that he went cold after a hot first quarter. He had a play where he blew by Theo Maledon for a layup, like something I was hoping to see from him. Obviously, it's Summer League. We don't know if that's the chance to the NBA, but he was able to get past the defender for a layup. He was able to make a steal for a dunk. Like things that I was looking for, I saw, and that's why I was very confused when you're like, well, what did you like? Do you expect him to go out and shoot 60%? Like, it's okay if he shot 30%. It's his first game in Summer League.
People are always going to overreact to the first appearance, especially when the next guy does really well in his game. Because you did watch Jalen Green put on a show. He was excellent.
He did.
And then you watched Cade Cunningham.
I was very
for
impressed.
all intents and purposes, if this were a regular season game, you would call it a stinker. Like he did not perform well in this game. He shot poorly. He had a great start, but shot poorly overall. He had 5 turnovers in this game. That's way too many. You need to cut that down big time.
4 of them were on Tyler Cook.
Fair enough, but you still need to understand. He still needs to cut that number down big time.
Yeah,
he's got to know that the guy's got stones of hands after practicing with him for a week at this point. So maybe he's got to put a little more touch in the pass.
Yeah, I know passing Tyler Cook is an automatic turnover.
Well,
don't do it.
Not just that. He's got to know how to pass to certain teammates. It's like the quarterback. It's the quarterback mentality of, okay, this guy's able to catch the ball here better than here, so I'm going to deliver the ball there. He's got, and that's something that he will learn and pick up.
Yeah, and that's part of what Summer League is for too, is getting a feel for your team.
I still don't want him playing Summer League. I don't. I think it's stupid and pointless. What is the point of him playing Summer League? What, for him to get hurt? And second of all, Sadiq Bey needs to also sit down. He is a man amongst boys in the Summer League, and he has nothing to prove.
I actually really enjoyed watching him in Summer League because you could tell he was kind of working on adding to his offensive game. He was trying some things out in that game, which is
wonderful.
Kind of I
don't care. You do it in preseason.
Just don't do anything you're going to hurt yourself with.
Do it in preseason. I don't want to see Sadiq Bey play another minute in Summer League because he has nothing to prove. He's already proven he is a literal man amongst boys. This dude is bigger and stronger than everybody out there. And it's no doubt. He is one of the best players on the floor every game right now in the Summer League. But looking at Cade Cunningham, and I'm not going to base this off of game 1. I'm going to basically set my level of expectation for what I think Cade Cunningham needs to be in his rookie year, and giving some leeway here to some of these fans that are worried about Cade. Because when you have a guy that is, and this is part of the reason I feel like some of these fans are worried, is when you have a guy who is the consensus number 1, is drafted to be a superstar, is the next coming of whatever Messiah you pray to, he has to be that from day 1. There is no learning curve with guys like that. They are the face of your franchise day 1. And to say Cade's not the face of this franchise day 1 is blatantly wrong, because he is.
No, I agree. He's the face of Detroit sports from day 1.
So he needs to be a star.
But even you aren't going to come out and put him on bust alert after one.
No, absolutely not. But I'm just saying he needs to be a star day 1. And I'm not counting Summer League as day 1. That's day 0. That's day -1. But he does need to be a star day 1. He needs to be the leader on this floor come day 1. He's
one of the most complete NBA ready prospects, if not the most NBA ready prospect in this draft. So, like,
Right.
yeah,
but,
I would
but
agree.
that's what I'm saying is he needs to be the guy come day one of the regular season. Like the expectations need to be met this year of what we think he can become. Like he needs to show that he is that guy this year.
And
there is no waiting period with him. There is no learning curve here. I know that it's unfair to say that a 20-year-old kid can't be allowed a learning curve, but that's just a fact of life in the NBA when you have this type of potential and when you are touted as this type of player. That's a fact. Look at Zion. He got no learning curve. It's just a fact.
No.
Lonzo Ball was crucified in his rookie year because he didn't get it right away.
Yeah, no, and there were also in respect with respect to that, there were also a lot of moments of that with Cade. Like he very much looked like the team captain on the floor on Sunday. He was.
Well, it's not hard to be when your teammates are Sekou Doumbouya and Tyler Cook. It's not hard to be the team captain on the floor.
The amount of times you saw him pointing his teammates to where to be on defense and being vocal with them on offense, and even like in between plays, like coaching him up. Like, I'm like, this is a rookie. Like,
but I'm not going to really put much weight in the stats of this game. There were certain things I liked and didn't like about Cade Cunningham, and a lot of the things I didn't like about Cade Cunningham had nothing to do with him and more so the way they utilized him. I'm going to come out here and say I really don't think this Killian Hayes-Cade Cunningham combo guard thing's going to work.
I actually thought Killian Hayes played real nice, but not as much when he was a two guard. Not
exactly.
He played real nice when he was the
he
one.
Can't
Which is
play
what I
the
was
two.
worried about.
He can't play the two because he's not a threat to shoot. If your two is a guy who shoots 2 of 6 from the floor, that won't succeed. Like it won't.
Yeah, he was nice from the mid range, but he did airball a 3. So
if you have if you have 2 combo guards out on the floor, they both have to be a threat to score for it to work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no threat there. Yeah. So if Killian Hayes doesn't find a way to develop a shot and be able to score the ball consistently and be a threat to do it consistently, this combo guard situation will not work with these two.
Yeah. That's why I said I was worried about going in.
And frankly speaking, as good as I think Cade can be off ball, I want the ball in his hands.
I agree.
So
he was much more effective with the ball in his hands.
Exactly. So I don't really want to see the ball in Killian Hayes' hands all that much when Cade Cunningham's on the floor.
Even though both his threes were catch and shoot from Killian Hayes' assist, but in terms of in general, yeah, I believe he was more effective.
So with that being said, if Killian Hayes can't play off ball effectively, and I want the ball in Cade Cunningham's hands, well, this probably isn't going to work. And I know it's day 0, it's day -1, it's game 1 of the summer league, so we can't even talk about it yet. But we did see Killian Hayes struggle to develop a shot last year and not be able to score last year. Granted, it was smaller sample size, but he still played a decent number of games, wasn't able to score effectively, and we've gotten no sign that he's been able to develop it over the offseason. So it does give me a little cause for concern that this thing may not work. But that may not necessarily be a bad thing. And you tell me right now that you have a defensive juggernaut point guard with potentially elite tier playmaking abilities, not much of a scorer, but potentially elite tier playmaking abilities, and a big time scorer, or not scored, big time defender coming off of the bench.
Both of them are, but yeah.
Well, I'm talking a guy who's not really much of a scorer, but a defensive juggernaut and a guy who's an elite potential playmaker and facilitator coming off of your bench. I'll tell you right now, I ain't too disappointed in that. You just need to find your 2. You're starting to. So
let's hope Killian's not too disappointed in that.
And you know what? Fans are going to be disappointed in that because he was drafted number 7 overall, and that's okay. They're allowed to be disappointed in that.
I'm not worried about the fans. I said let's hope Killian's not disappointed in that.
No, I know, but there are going to be people that are disappointed in that. Fans, analysts, whatever. He was drafted number 7 overall. That's a guy you want to be a cornerstone of your franchise.
Yeah, you don't draft someone 7 overall being off the bench, but it could work. Again.
Exactly. But when you have guys who are playing above their level or above expectation, and then you add the fact that you have Cade Cunningham in there, it's okay if a guy that was drafted number 7 overall slides to the bench, plays 25 minutes a game, and is effective. Like, that's okay. That's how you build a deep team.
I fully expect to see both starting lineups this season. I expect to see starting lineups where you have Caden and Killian kind of running both guard spots, and I expect to see starting lineups. We see Cade starting clean off the bench and bring in Diallo, Josh Jackson, Frank Jackson in at the 2.
I think you'll see. Well, Diallo still is. We don't know if he's coming back.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers are crossed.
I'm putting it out into the
He has
universe.
hinted at a little bit that he is going to be coming back on social media with liking certain tweets and stuff like that. But
we did resign Frank Jackson finally.
We did. I will say this. I do think early in the season you will see the combo guard setup be tried with Cade and Killian.
I 100% agree.
And if it doesn't prove to work, you'll see Dwayne Casey go away from it and bring in some of the more experienced guys to play too, like Josh Jackson, who Josh Jackson, like his role in this team more than I think I ever have right now because of his ability to play that 3 and D at the 2. So,
you want to know one lineup I never want to see again?
What?
They tried it out in Summer League. It was Cade, Killian, Saban. 1, 2, 3. Not particularly in that order, but that's too little shooting for me.
That's far too little shooting and far too small of a lineup. Like that.
Exactly.
That's just asking. Like,
well, you can play Cade the 3s.
Cade covering the 3. Is he big enough though? I feel like Cade
He looked like he dropped about 15 pounds.
Yeah, I feel like Cade would get bodied at the 3, trying to defend a 3 guard or a 3 wing. You know, can you imagine someone like Danny Green going up against with Cade Cunningham in his way? I
think he can. I think he can hold his own, but
I think he'd be able to.
He's shown it in college,
easily.
But
Danny Green's a bad example. Or here, Kawhi Leonard or Paul George. Good luck.
Well, not many people can guard those two. But.
I know, but again, though, you drafted Cade Cunningham to guard superstars.
Yeah,
he's supposed to be an elite level defender. He's got to be the guy.
And I'll tell you what, when we play the Clippers, I bet you Cade Cunningham is guarding one of those two.
I'd probably wager that you probably have
Sadiq.
I'd wager it's going to be Sadiq Bey and Jeremy Grant. I'd wager
you could argue
those
Jeremy
two.
Grant.
Yeah, I'd wager those two, to be honest with you. Or Josh Jackson, who's another good defender. I'd wager somebody not named Cade Cunningham covering one of those two guys. You'd probably want Cade Cunningham moving as freely as possible. So, but going through things, the rest of the roster, things we didn't like. I mean, Sadiq Bey, I said it already, man amongst men. No need to see anything else from him. He's clearly just, in terms of being a basketball player, he is just head and shoulders above the rest of the talent that is in the summer league. He is a different player than these guys. And I know he's only a sophomore, but dude looks like he's been in the league for 5+ years.
Yeah.
And it shows.
And Killian, I thought, played real well. He had one glaring misstep where this was to bring us, I believe, within 1 point towards the last minute of the game. Has Cade Cunningham on a fast break and tries to do that one-handed bounce pass thing and overshoots him by a little bit.
Trying to be flashy.
I couldn't help but think like if you just did a normal bounce pass, you would have hit him. But
right.
Other than that, he was a pest on defense. He was making all the right plays. He was offense.
Active, very active.
I really like the way I saw it.
The glaring problem with him is his shooting. Yep. And I feel like that's going to be a theme this year. He's going to be active. He's going to be a facilitator. He's going to be a pest defensively. But the shooting is going to be a glaring black hole. A big bright red X on his resume this year.
Yeah. And even then, the mid-range is actually looking good. It's still the outside shooting he's got to work on.
He hit 2 shots. What looked good?
He was 2 for 4.
He was 2 for 6.
Well, 0 for 2 from 3. He was 2 for 4 from mid-range. I said his mid-range is looking good.
Fine. Saban Lee, I still think that this guy is going to have an effective role off the bench for this team. I like Saban Lee. I always have. He looks active all over the floor as well. Played actually quite a few minutes in this game.
Yeah.
Luka Garza.
Another guy needs to work on his jumper too, though.
Yes, absolutely. Luka Garza, honestly, I feel like this dude can carve out a spot on the roster, like day one. Like I think this guy can play the game, and I think he's going to be able to carve out a role on this team.
As long as he doesn't get carved up on defense. I mean, that's what happened already. Game 1 of summer league.
In today's day and age, those guys just exist on your lineup. They do.
You just can't play them. You just can't play them big minutes if they're going to be an insane liability.
But you know what? They can come in the middle of the second quarter and third quarter, early fourth quarter, and take up some minutes, give the starters a spell, and not be a black hole offensively. They can put some points up on the board. He can hit some shots. So that's where I'm saying I think Luka Garza can carve out a role on this team because he's able to shoot and shoot well.
One deep cut name, Spencer Littleson. It was one of our undrafted free agents. I actually was hoping to see some 3-point shooting out of him. Obviously, I'm not going to put too much stock in shooting.
We saw a lot of 3-point shooting out of him, just not going in.
Oh man, but I think the big negative spot for me was Tyler Cook.
He had a rough day.
Saku was okay. He made some really nice plays
like
on
the
defense.
Same player he's always been, and
yeah, he has like these really big these spurts of high activity play, and then just disappears.
Right,
like that's.
I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, he had 5 blocks. That's very good. That's very good. He's very
especially one crucial block towards the end of the game.
Yes, absolutely. I do remember that one when Cade came over to help, and then Saku just comes out and just swats the ball out of
top.
Stay into the second row. But I know people are going to worry about Cade shooting, and they're going to say, "Oh, he shot poorly. Look at Jalen Green. He scored so effectively, and he looked so good. Why didn't we draft him?" The one thing you can look at with Cade, though, is the shot looks great.
Yeah.
It looks very good. He's got a very smooth, clean release, good timing. It just wasn't falling. And you know what? There's going to be those nights.
Exactly.
And that's okay. As long as those nights are few and far between and he's able to hit most of those shots, well, guess what? He's going to be a damn good player in this league.
Yeah. There's no part of me that's worried about shooting ability.
Absolutely
0.
not.
Yeah.
And I know that I've heard some detractors say that we should have taken Jalen Green because of the explosiveness. And I'll agree, yes, there were times in that game where Cade Cunningham did look slow. He showed the fact that he's not an elite tier athlete, but he also is smart enough to not have to worry about it. And that's why it doesn't worry me too much. It does worry me a little bit that he did at times look a little slow in summer league. So what's he going to look like against real NBA talent in the regular season and, hopefully, God willing, the playoffs. But at the same time, he's a good enough basketball player to work around that and still make plays for himself and others and will his team to victory. And that's why I'm not really going to put too much stock into it. Just because, 1, it's Summer League, Game 1, and 2, I think this guy is just a crafty enough player, a smart enough player that it's not going to be a big issue. So let me ask you this to close out this segment here. Let's give some grades to Cade Cunningham here. Let's give Cade Cunningham a grade. Yep, just game 1, a game 1 grade, a way too early grade. Let's grade his day 1 performance, Andrew.
That's a B.
A B? Mm-hmm. I'll go B. Yeah, I'll go B. I would say B minus, but I think the added effect he had on the defensive end will boost him back up to a B. So
I saw a lot more good than I saw bad. Let's put it that way.
Fair enough. Anything else to add before we move on?
Let's keep it moving.
All right, let's do it. It's finally time. This is the last episode that will be released before we see live football. Live NFL football until what? Middle of February?
Yeah.
So we are finally here to talk about some Lions, and not just off-season Lions, preseason Lions, no less. But
you betting on preseason games?
No. I am not a degenerate, sir. I am not a degenerate, sir. Obviously, we're excited that football is back. I mean, just like Summer League, I don't get up on the preseason very much. Like, it is meaningless to me. In all reality, like, everybody gets it. There's always the one guy that has this massive preseason and then goes off to actually be a nobody. Who was the Lions always have one receiver in the preseason that does this every single year, and he's a nobody every single year after the preseason, if he even makes the roster.
Oftentimes he gets cut. Yeah. Like, what's going on?
So, frankly, again, I don't put any weight in the preseason at all, just like Summer League, but it is good to see football back.
I generally go into preseason looking more for skill improvements, chemistry signs, like stuff like that. Like, I never really look for numbers.
I'll be honest with you. I don't even get that far into preseason. You know how far I get into preseason? just to scratch the itch. That's it. Yeah. Like it's literally nothing more than pure selfish release that I finally get to see football again. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's the only weight that I put into the preseason, that it's finally here, and I get to scratch the itch that I've been wanting for the last few months. That's it. And
well, I agree. I don't like. Same with like NBA preseason. I don't really put much stock into it.
I'd probably put more stock in NFL preseason than I do NBA preseason. I think they're both just. But anyways, with that being said, though,
and really the only reason I'm watching Summer League is because I just really like to watch Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green square off.
With that being said, though, there are some things to actually watch with the Lions, and a few of those things being utilization of guys like DeAndre Swift. What are, not necessarily the amount, but the ways. Same with Jamal Williams. The chemistry and the connection between Jared Goff and TJ Hawkinson's a big one that's really being talked about right now in training camp.
That's one of my big ones.
How much of the targets are going to TJ Hawkinson in practice, and a lot of these short dink and dunk type routes, the game management type routes, and who emerges from the wide receiver core. We've seen several different names come up, and they, I believe, just signed another free agent wide receiver to come in and compete for a job as well. Like there is a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to look for, and obviously the rookies are a big one. Should they be as active as you like? I mean, Ali McNeil sounds extremely hyped up in training camp and ready to go, and I'm going to be watching for him to see, hey, this guy looks like the man. And things like that, because he is a late round pick, so he's going to get his opportunities in preseason. But Andrew, I'm curious to hear some of the things that you're going to be looking out for in preseason week 1 coming this Friday.
Well, you already hit on one of them, and I guess it's not so much week 1, but kind of the overall over the course of preseason is that chemistry between Jared Goff and TJ Hawkinson, and is it as strong as touted? But aside from the low hanging fruit, I kind of want to see, outside of TJ Hawkinson, who emerges out of this receiving core. Who are we treating as our top receiver? Who's getting the targets in the slot? Like I'm very curious to see how this receiving core shakes out. I think preseason tells us a lot of that. And lastly, the run game. I'm very curious to see how this offensive line is going to protect against the run, and how DeAndre Swift performs behind this offensive line. I'm not so much concerned after we start making subs on that offensive line after a quarter or two. But with the first quarter, I'll be very curious.
So let me ask you this. With preseason being only 3 weeks now, how much do you want to see these starters play? Because I'll tell you right now, I don't want to see much of it. I know Jared Goff is starting week 1 of the preseason. I think that's fairly normal. But is it really necessary to even bother with it? Like, I don't know. I guess you got to start him just to get his legs out there and in a Lions uniform and at Ford Field. But either way, I don't want to see too much of these guys out there. We know for the most part what they are.
My ideal is first drive in the first preseason game, first quarter in the second, and then first half in the third. Kind of similar to what they do with preseason in the past. And in the past, the fourth game was all reserves, but we don't have a fourth game this time. However, I'm aware that we're apparently playing our starters the entire first quarter on Friday, which I'm not too pleased about, but I'm not going to scream and yell about it.
The way I would do it, with it being 3 preseason games, is I'm going to treat week 3 of the preseason as week 4 of last year. Of previous years.
So week 2 would be a dress rehearsal?
Week 2 would be my dress rehearsal, where week 1, I basically give them 2 drives. Week 2, I give them a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half, something like that. And then week 3, I put them out there to snap a ball.
Well, they're already getting a quarter week 1, so.
Oh, well, I know. But that's too much in my mind. Like, I wouldn't give them that much. I give them 2 drives, and then they're done. And the reserves go duke it out for your roster spots. And then week 2, that's where I'd throw in, get the actual dress rehearsal where I'd see a whole quarter, maybe a quarter and a half, maybe even a half out of them. Yeah. Then week 3, I don't play them at all. If I do, it's like a play and then you're done. And then everybody's well rested, ready to go for week 1 of the regular season. We're pumped up, and let's do it.
I'll agree with that.
What are you looking for out of Jared Goff in this preseason, in the time he gets? Because he's going to get a whole quarter in week 1, which means he's probably getting a whole half in week 2. What are you looking for?
again, it's kind of going to harken back to my previous points. One, I'm going to be looking for is that chemistry with T. Hockenson. Is there any tangible evidence of that? And two, I'm going to be looking at how he spreads the ball around, and it kind of harkens back to who emerged from the receiver core. I'm going to be looking at, is he zoning in on one guy the entire time? Is he spreading the ball around? Is he making smart plays? It's not like he wasn't exactly like a dumb quarterback with the Rams. He was a solid, smart quarterback, and so I would fully expect that to carry over. I'm not expecting to see much.
Sean McVay would disagree.
I'm not expecting to see much improvement anywhere from when he was with the Rams. So I'm expecting to see more of the same. More of what I'm looking for is how it impacts our offense.
I'm kind of looking for certain guys to really try to cement themselves in their spots. Guys like one of the receivers has got to emerge. Obviously, I personally do believe Amon St. Brown's going to be your slot receiver day one. I think Quintez Cephas will probably be your number 4 receiver day one. The guy who lines up out wide or in the other slot as a reserve receiver. And then the top 2 guys will probably be two of Tyler Williams, Brashad Perriman. The names Khalif Raymond and Darius Jennings have come up quite a bit. Didn't they actually cut one of those guys? Now that I think about it.
Khalif Raymond's still on the team. I know that because they just released their depth chart.
Yes, he is.
And he's on there.
No, they just signed Darius Jennings. That's what it was. So that's the guy that I previously mentioned.
I'm not too familiar with that name.
They just signed him. But Khalif Raymond is a guy who, when Tyler Williams went down or was out of practice the other day, Khalif Raymond was the one who stepped up into the outside. Mm-hmm. So he's a guy who was getting reps with the ones on the outside there. So that's somebody to look out for. And I do think there are going to be guys who take advantage of extra work and extra opportunity, and that's something I'm actually really excited to look out for. I'm also excited to see the way that this, at least for the first 2 drives, the way that this coaching staff calls the first couple drives, because they're scripted, and that's something the Lions have struggled with in the past, is these scripted drives being successful, and I want to see them be successful. I want to see them set the tone. And I do want to see them utilize the run quite a bit with DeAndre Swift, have a good mix of DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams out there to make it work. So,
yeah. Hey, you bring up a good point. I didn't even think about seeing how the coaching staff calls the game because it's going to be the first time we see them in action. So
right,
you're right.
It's a new coaching staff entirely to us. Obviously, these guys have experience in this league, but Dan Campbell is a new head coach. I know he did interim work with the Dolphins, but for all intents and purposes, this is his first real gig. Anthony Lynn, a very experienced coach in this league, but he's back to the offensive coordinator position, so I like to see him kind of take the reins and take control of that offense and be effective with it and smart play calling. Then defensively, I want to see Aaron Glenn, first-time DC, step up and be the leader that we brought him in to be and rally that defense. Hopefully he's the next Robert Saleh that players play up for and want to play for him. Because from everything I've heard, players are excited to play for Aaron Glenn.
Yep.
I can't say the same about guys like Matt Patricia. So I am going to be watching the coaching staff and see how they do. The other thing I'm going to be watching is this kicking battle. Because Matt Prater is no longer here. He signed with the Arizona Cardinals, and now you have a battle between, I believe it's Riley Bullock and
Reggie.
I thought it was Riley Bullock.
I'm thinking Reggie Bullock of the Pistons. It's Randy Bullock.
Randy Bullock. That's who it is. Yeah, Randy Bullock.
But they also just signed Zane Gonzalez,
They did just sign Zane Gonzalez as well. And they cut Matthew Wright. That was going to be the other name I mentioned, but apparently they cut him 3 hours ago. So Zane Gonzalez and Randy Bullock as the 2 guys going in a kicking battle. Lions fans are no strangers to kicking woes in the post-Jason Hansen era. Obviously, we had issues with Matt Prater last year, but then if you remember back to before Matt Prater got here, when we had, who was it? Nate Freese, Alex Henry, and who was the other one? I know we had 3 kickers that were very bad. I can't remember the third one, but things weren't great, so hopefully they can figure out the kicking game as well.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, it sounds like one of the reasons they brought in Zane Gonzalez is because reportedly Randy Bullock has not been great.
Yes, so I've heard he's been struggling as well. I mean, a kicker that's been
I'll
on,
be honest with you. I'm worried about our kicking game.
I am as well. But again, a kicker that has been on, 5 teams in 7 years or whatever it is for Randy Bullock usually isn't a very good kicker. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to be excited about. With football being back, you obviously have something that I don't even know. But it's good to have football back. I'll say this. I will say I hope we don't see COVID make a big impact on the season this year. Not the Lions, but the NFL has taken a very hard stance on where they're going to stand with COVID, and the protocols there are, if you are not vaccinated, well, you better follow the strict protocols we had last season, and if you don't and you get sick, well, your team's going to and you end up infecting teammates, well, your team's going to forfeit the week and you forfeit game checks and get fined, and it's the NFL's taking a hard stance. It's either get vaccinated or you better watch your shit because they're not going to play.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you.
I'm not familiar. Where do the Lions stand in terms of vaccination? I know the Vikings are the worst in our division, which
the Vikings
scares me.
are the worst.
We could get some games canceled because of them.
Well, hey, if it's the Vikings forfeiting games, that's fine with me. That's losses for them and lost game checks for them. If we end up taking a W there, honestly, that isn't a good thing because it's a 1 forfeit win that hurts your draft stock.
Yep.
So that could end up hurting us in the long run. So say the Vikings, say we're number 1 overall and we play the Vikings and they forfeit the game because they have COVID, and because of that win, we're no longer number 1. I'd be pissed. I'd be real pissed.
It's going to be a nightmare for fantasy.
This is another year where I'm saying I don't think a standard yearly league is the right route. Lions are over 80% vaccinated.
Okay, good.
Trending the right way. But I think this is another year that you move your leagues to the DFS format and roll with it, because it's not a normal year. And I know we want it to be so badly. It's going to be more of a normal year than last year, but it's not. It's not quite there yet, because you will still see players test positive for COVID and not be able to play. I mean, Lamar Jackson just tested positive for COVID, so he wasn't at practice. And this is his second time with COVID. So that tells you right there that this is still a problem. And these players can still get this, and they will miss games because of it. And if they're not vaccinated, they could miss up to 10 days, which potentially is 2 games because of it. So for fantasy purposes, a yearly league scares me. It does. Yeah. So I will be putting much more stock in DFS leagues this year for sure.
I have a question for you. We're recording this a couple hours before Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green square off in Summer League. What are you looking forward to more? This Summer League matchup or preseason game 1 for the Lions?
Can I say neither? I'll be honest with you. I put 0 stock in either one of them. Mm-hmm. If I
I'm not putting stock in either. I do think one will be more entertaining than the other.
Let me say this. I love my sports teams. I watch them all the time. I pay attention to them constantly. I'm constantly reading about them, looking at box scores, looking at highlights. I love my sports teams. If I were to wake up tomorrow or wake up on Saturday having not watched either one of these two, it wouldn't bother me one bit. Not one bit.
See, the way the place I come from is, for tonight at least, I'm watching from a purely entertainment standpoint. I'm not putting stock in it.
See, but I don't find Summer League all that entertaining.
I do.
I look at it as bad basketball because it's a bunch of guys who will not make the roster, and the guys that do are probably end of your bench.
But it is a bunch of guys fighting for roster spots, which I
disagree with that also, because I don't think half these players. I think half these players know they're not on a roster.
Yeah, but they could land on a different roster. They may not make the roster they're playing for, but if with a good Summer League showing, our team can sign them onto their roster or onto their G League roster. Then the team that they get signed by is probably a very bad basketball team.
Well, yeah. So then nobody cares to watch them anyways. So, but again, that's the thing though, is the Summer League is so meaningless to me. If it were to disappear tomorrow, I wouldn't care. I really wouldn't. It would not bother me one bit. I don't put any weight in it. I don't care. Have I watched Summer League games? Yes, many, several. That's just because I like watching sports. Will I watch tonight? Maybe. Does the matchup of Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green intrigue me? You better believe it does. Yes, absolutely, it does. But do I think that they are going to be at 100% against each other? No, and I would hope they're not going to. And guys in most summer league games are probably at like a 50 out of 100. They'll probably be at like a 75 out of 100 because there is going to be some competitiveness against each other because of the 1-2 aspect. They're excited to play each other. They're probably going to go at it a little bit. So there is some intrigue with this. But if I weren't going to watch it, like if I didn't end up watching it, I wouldn't feel like I missed anything in all reality.
And heading into this game, I just want to make one last plea to Detroit fans. Can we please stop comparing these two? It's one thing to compare them in terms of who do you want to draft, what direction do you want to go, but now that they're drafted, now that they're in the league, these are two very different players.
You know what, Andrew?
It's a dumb comparison.
I'm gonna sit here and say I disagree with you.
Really?
These players are going to be compared for the rest of their. They're going to be,
and it's going to annoy the shit out of me.
And they should be compared against each other for the remainder of their careers. Why? Because they were drafted number 1 and number 2. It is going to be that way forever, and it should be that way because there was a local debate and a national debate. Not necessarily amongst the scouts and analysts because there was one clear winner, but there's going to be there was a constant debate of which one do you take, and for different reasons, and for that reason alone, they're going to be compared against each other, and you're going to say, well, Jalen Green puts up 28 points and shoots a ton of threes and makes a ton of threes. Well, Cade Cunningham puts up 24 points and 8 assists. You know, there's going to be that constant comparison, and it's going to go back and forth. And if both careers end up going and meeting the expectations that they are, I don't know that you'll ever get an answer to the comparison because they are different players. So while you can say that, I think your argument should more be you're comparing apples to oranges as opposed to you shouldn't compare them.
That's what I'm trying to. That's
because
the point
no matter
I'm making.
what, I think they should be compared. I think they should be compared. It's just a situation where no matter what, you're always going to come out with apples and oranges here.
Exactly. There's never going to be a communion between the two. Like it's what do you value more as a basketball fan when you're watching these two play? Like if you value scoring more, you are always, I think 9 times out of 10, going to take Jalen Green and going to say Jalen Green had the better career or will have the better career or whatever. And if you value things like playmaking more, you might say Cade Cunningham is going to have the better career or has a better game.
In the end all be all, there is one clear denominator and one clear discussion ender when it comes to comparing these two. It's who won more, who won titles, who made the playoffs, who made it deeper in the playoffs, how many all NBA teams did each player make. You know, that's going to be where the comparisons really count, because who was the better player, all around player at that point, not just, you know, who averaged more points. You know, guys like oh, God, what was his name? He used to play for the Kings, shooting guard. Kevin Martin. Kevin Martin was a guy who averaged a ton of points when he played for the Kings. Was he actually that good of a player? Not really. But he scored a ton.
Very long.
and he didn't win. So is he really that good of a player? No. So
there's a lot of names like that. Monta Ellis, for example.
Like it's going to come down to, and they're always going to be compared, and they always should be compared because they were number 1 and number 2. And when it's all said and done, I'm going to look at who won. Mm-hmm. Who won a title or 2 or 3 or more. Who went to NBA? I don't want to say NBA All-Star games, but who won all NBA awards?
Yeah.
Who won MVPs? Mm-hmm. Most improved players, rookie of the years, you know, who won the awards and who led their team to championships. I'm not going to look at their scoring numbers and say, oh, Jalen Green averaged 4 points more a game than Cade Cunningham, so he was better. Or Cade Cunningham averaged 4 more assists than Jalen Green, so he's better. Like, I'm not going to look at that.
But I can already see it now going tonight. We're going to hear people calling in to Sports Radio tomorrow and try to compare who had the better game between Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham. And
you're going to.
Unless one clearly plays a bad game, it's going to be a moot point. Like, That's all I'm saying.
Yes and no. Again, like the comparison should be there, and it should, and it always will be there because these guys are number one and number two. But basing the comparison off of one summer league game that they went up against each other, now that's stupid.
Yeah.
Basing your opinion off of that game alone is idiotic and shows how little you actually pay attention and know about basketball. Just because of how they played in one summer league game, it decides how you feel about the two players. Well, then you're going to change your mind a lot this year. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So I will be excited to see when those two players go off against each other in an NBA Finals. That will be the dream scenario because that will be a big decider. And if that actually ends up happening, this draft may go down as one of the greatest drafts in the history of the game. If Cade and Jalen Green...
When was the last time? Like, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Have we ever had a draft or 1 and 2 face off in the finals?
I don't know.
We're getting so far ahead of ourselves, by the way.
I know. Maybe by accident, like a number 2 pick that didn't actually end up being that good, but was like stashed on a roster that made the NBA Finals against LeBron or somebody. Granted, it would have had to have been LeBron and Darko, so no, that never happened. But granted, Darko did win a title before LeBron.
Yep. He was the first person in that draft class to win a title.
Uh-huh. Well, it was his rookie year, wasn't it?
Yep. He was the first person in that draft class.
So, but either way, like anybody who bases their opinion off of who's better in this matchup off of tonight, no. I don't care to hear your opinion about basketball any longer at that point.
Last question for you.
Yeah.
You gonna watch the Jermaine O'Neal produced Mouse the Palace episode of Untold on Netflix?
Is he producing that?
Yep.
I didn't know he was producing that. That is going to have a
night.
heavy Pacers lean. My God. You know what? Just
apparently
because
they interviewed and I can't confirm this, but I read this that they interviewed Rashid and Larry Brown for the doc, and both interviews got cut.
How are you going to cut
I
Rashid's
can't confirm it.
interview?
I haven't seen it, so I don't know if they could be in it. But
you got to know Rashid's probably got one of the best interviews for the Malice of the Palace out there.
Yeah.
So that right there tells me that this has got to have the biggest Pacers lean to where there should be a little asterisk at the bottom of the screen that says dramatization on the bottom because they made the Detroit Pistons and their fans look like the Monstars. Just these evil creatures.
I wouldn't doubt it. I'm still going to watch out of plain curiosity, but yeah.
Now that makes me even more
I'll
curious
report
about
back
it
in the next
now
pod.
I feel like I'm just going to get even more angry.
Let's both watch it. We'll debate its merits in the next pod.
When's it coming out?
It's out. It just dropped last night.
Oh,
yeah, it just dropped last night. It's on Netflix.
We can do that. I can find some time.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, it's when's tip off? Should be coming out
9 p.m. Eastern.
Oh,
are you talking about Jill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in a few hours. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm curious. I'm intrigued. This is probably the most intrigued I've been about a summer league game ever.
Yep.
Which
Same.
May cause me to dabble.
I'll be honest with you.
it may cause me to dabble. I don't know. We'll see. But either way, it's not going to decide who is the better player. And Pistons fans have to remember that.
Yep.
And so do. And you know what?
I don't care if Cade drops 30 and Jalen drops 2 points. I'm not going to also
go
on and say Cade's better than Jalen.
Rockets fans need to remember that also because Cade Cunningham's about to straight ball.
Yep.
And drop and drop dimes and just make it rain in Jalen Green's face.
Let's hope that Tate doesn't age like milk.
Yeah, seriously, let's hope it ages like a fine wine. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this before we close out. Would it make you feel at least a little bit giddy if Cade Cunningham just straight balls in Jalen Green's face tonight? Just a little bit.
I was getting hype after he made 2 straight threes on Sunday. Of course, it's gonna make me feel
just knowing what Rockets fans are saying. Oh, we don't even want Cade anyways.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Like it would make you feel kind of.
That's all I want. I just want it to rub it in. I'm not putting stock in it.
Fair.
I just want to make Rockets fans feel bad. That's all.
Fair. That's fair. I just the one thing I don't want to see is Rocket fans coming into Pistons Twitter and saying, "Oh, look, we got the better player." Yeah, I don't want to see that. It's NBA Summer League. Granted, I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here by saying it's NBA Summer League, but I'm going to get excited if Cade does well. But you know what? I'm a fan. I'm allowed to. So screw you.
Yep.
And on that note, that is going to call for this week, guys. Thank you for listening. We will catch you next week after Lions preseason week 1 and the Cade v. Jalen matchup.
Ali versus Frazier.
I'm not quite ready to call it that, but sure. Maybe Ali v. Frazier in like a pillow fight.
Okay, I'll take it. As long as Cade's Ali and Joe Green's Frazier.
Sure. But thank you for listening. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast. As always, follow us on Twitter at Real Fan Report. Andrew, thank you for joining me. We will catch you guys next week. This has been the Fan Report. By fans.
For fans.
See you guys later. Have a good week and enjoy your weekend. Peace out.
Peace.